Random House Audio presents The Traveler by John 12 Hawkes. Read for you by David Carradine.
This is John 12 Hawkes. I wrote The Traveler in an attempt to understand our contemporary world. Each day when you go to work, you are monitored by dozens, if not hundreds, of surveillance cameras that can identify you and track your movements. Your phone calls and email messages are routinely scanned. Modern technology gives almost anyone the ability to know your medical history, the names of your friends, and the titles of the books you read. I'm not describing the future or some Hollywood fantasy. This is our life right now. Writing this novel, I've tried to reveal a larger truth using the power of fiction. In The Traveler, a small group of people risk everything for knowledge and freedom. They believe in the power of the individual and the light which is in all of us. I wrote The Traveler because I still believe in honor and bravery and love. I live off the grid. Who I am and what I've done are not important. This is John 12 Hawkes. The Traveler speaks for me.
Prelude, Night, Death, and the Devil. Maya reached out and took her father's hand as they walked from the underground to the light. Thorne didn't push her away or tell Maya to concentrate on the position of her body. Smiling, he guided her up a narrow staircase to a long sloping tunnel with white tile walls. The London Underground Authority had installed steel bars on one side of the tunnel, and this barrier made the ordinary passageway look like part of an enormous prison. If she had been traveling alone, Maya might have felt trapped and uncomfortable, but there was nothing to worry about because Father was with her. It's the perfect day, she thought. Well, maybe it was the second most perfect day. She still remembered 2 years ago when Father had missed her birthday and Christmas, only to show up on Boxing Day with a taxi full of presents from Maya and her mother. That morning was bright and full of surprises, but this Saturday seemed to promise a more durable happiness. Instead of the usual trip to the empty warehouse near Canary Wharf, where her father taught her how to kick and punch and use weapons, they had spent the day at the London Zoo, where he had told her different stories about each of the animals. Father had traveled all over the world and could describe Paraguay or Egypt as if he were a tour guide. People had glanced at them as they strolled past the cages. Most Harlequins tried to blend into the crowd, but her father stood out in a group of ordinary citizens. He was German with a strong nose, shoulder-length hair, and dark blue eyes. Thorne dressed in somber colors and wore a steel carver bracelet that looked like a broken shackle. Maya had found a battered art history book in the closet of their rented flat in East London. Near the front of the book was a picture by Albrecht Dürer called Night, Death, and the Devil. She liked to stare at the picture, even though it made her feel strange. The armored knight was like her father, calm and brave, riding through the mountains as death held up an hourglass, and the devil followed, pretending to be a squire. Thorne also carried a sword, but his was concealed inside a metal tube with a leather shoulder strap. Although she was proud of Thorne, he also made her feel embarrassed and self-conscious. Sometimes she just wanted to be an ordinary girl with a pudgy father who worked in an office, a happy man who bought ice cream cones and told jokes about kangaroos. Maya was 12 years old, but still wasn't strong enough to use a Harlequin sword. As a substitute, Father had taken a walking stick from the closet and given it to her before they left the flat that morning. Maya had Thorn's white skin and strong features, and her Sikh mother's thick black hair. Her eyes were such a pale blue that from a certain angle they looked translucent. She hated it when well-meaning women approached her mother and complimented Maya's appearance. In a few years, she'd be old enough to disguise herself and look as ordinary as possible. They left the zoo and strolled through Regent's Park. It was late April, and young men were kicking soccer balls across the muddy lawn, while parents pushed bundled-up babies in perambulators. The whole city seemed to be out enjoying the sunshine after 3 days of rain. Maya and her father took the Piccadilly line to the Arsenal station. It was getting dark when they reached the street-level exit. There was an Indian restaurant in Finsbury Park, and Thorn had made reservations for an early supper. Maya heard noises, blaring air horns and shouting in the distance, and wondered if there was some kind of political demonstration. Then Father led her through the turnstile and out into a war. Standing on the sidewalk, she saw a mob of people marching up Highbury Hill Road. There weren't any protest signs and banners, and Maya realized that she was watching the end of a football match. The Arsenal Stadium was straight down the road, and a team with blue and white colors, that was Chelsea, had just played there. The Chelsea supporters were coming out of the visitors' gate on the west end of the stadium and heading down a narrow street lined with row houses. Normally, it was a quick walk to the station entrance, but now the North London street had turned into a gauntlet. The police were protecting Chelsea from Arsenal football thugs who were trying to attack them and start fights. Policemen on the edges, blue and white in the center, red throwing bottles and trying to break through the line. Citizens caught in front of the crowd scrambled between parked cars and knocked over rubbish bins. Flowering hawthorns grew at the edge of the curb, and their pink blossoms trembled whenever someone was shoved against a tree. Petals fluttered through the air and fell upon the surging mass. Maya glanced up at her father. We should run away, she thought. These people are completely mad. But Thorn glared at his daughter as if he had just sensed her fear, and Maya stayed silent. Everyone was shouting. The voices merged into one angry roar. Maya heard a high-pitched whistle, the wail of a police siren. A beer bottle sailed through the air and exploded into fragments a few feet away from where they were standing. Suddenly, a flying wedge of red shirts and scarves plowed through the police lines, and she saw men kicking and throwing punches. Blood streamed down a policeman's face, but he raised his truncheon and fought back. She squeezed Father's hand. They're coming toward us, she said. We need to get out of the way. Thorn turned around and pulled his daughter back into the entrance of the tube station, as if to find refuge there. But now the police were driving the Chelsea supporters forward like a herd of cattle, and she was surrounded by men wearing blue. Caught in the crowd, Maya and her father were pushed past the ticket booth where the elderly clerk cowered behind the thick glass. Father vaulted over the turnstile, and Maya followed. Now they were back in the long tunnel, heading down to the trains. It's all right, she thought. We're safe now. Then she realized that men wearing red had forced their way into the tunnel and were running beside them. One of the men was carrying a wool sock filled with something heavy, rocks, ball bearings, and he swung it like a club at the old man just in front of her, knocking off the man's glasses and breaking his nose. A gang of Arsenal thugs slammed a Chelsea supporter against the steel bars on the left side of the tunnel. The man tried to get away as they kicked and beat him. More blood, and no police anywhere. Thorn grabbed the back of Maya's jacket and dragged her through the fighting. A man tried to attack them, and Father stopped him instantly with a quick, snapping punch to the throat. Maya hurried down the tunnel, trying to reach the stairway. Before she could react, something like a rope came over her right shoulder and across her chest. Maya looked down and saw that Thorn had just tied a blue and white Chelsea scarf around her body. In an instant, she realized that the day at the zoo, the amusing stories, and the trip to the restaurant were all part of a plan. Father had known about the football game, had probably been here before and timed their arrival. She glanced over her shoulder and saw Thorn smile and nod as if he had just told her an amusing story. Then he turned and walked away.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?